bonus podcast time here at the Wealthy Ironworker. Now, this really quick bonus podcast episode, I want to talk about three things, just three things. I could expand upon this indefinitely if you want. And, maybe you feel like I should. And if that's the case, you can drop me a line either in the comment section or you can go over to thewealthyironworker.com and kind of tell me about that. But if you are somebody who's in the trades or even not, this is not going to be just applicable to the trades. This is a podcast episode for just about anybody out there. But I'm going to tell you three things that you can do to legitimately set your kids up for success. And if you have kids and they've already kind of flown the nest, if you will, I'd appreciate your feedback as well. Because I always want to tweak things up for those who might be listening and could definitely, I would say, glean from those of us who are older. Because one of the things I think we've got a serious problem with is a lot of us older folks what we're not doing is passing on good knowledge and wisdom and application. We're so busy and focused on our own life that we're not actively looking to pour into young people, and not just the ones that are ours, our kids, but the younger person at work that's willing to engage in conversation with you. The younger people that, they're out there in social media. Maybe it's the younger people that you encounter at church or wherever it happens to be. One of the serious consequences that I've seen in the past 20 years, at least in the past 20 years, is that we have been unwilling to pass on good knowledge and wisdom to younger people. And that has had some really negative consequences, I think, in culture. So if you have something to provide or you have something that you've done that I haven't talked about, I could, maybe this is a whole podcast series. Hell, I don't know. But I want to talk about just three today. If I had to condense, and this is off the top of my head kind of stuff, if I had to tell you three things that could have tremendous impact on young people, it's this. Number one, I would tell you as a young person, or tell you as an older person to tell that younger person to learn to recognize patterns. Meaning, when you do research, and one of the things that we unfortunately do, you've heard me say this multiple times on this platform, but I'm holding up my phone. One of the things that we do with these phones and technology in general is that we'll use them for entertainment purposes. Now, look, I'm not dumping on entertainment. I think there's something to laughter that heals the soul, if you will. And there's something in laughter that we should really embrace. But there's also something in laughter that we take it above and beyond. And we're always using it and pursuing it at the cost of actually doing something significant. And one of the things that I would say is the recognition of patterns. Now, when you're doing, like, let's say mental math or whatever, as a young person, that, solving mathematical problems when you focus on patterns is immensely helpful. But when we use technology to look at research and look at things, we get to see data and we can understand, okay, well, where are the trends going to? And I don't mean, comedic trends. I mean the trends in culture. Like, for example, what industries seem to be thriving and which ones don't. Right now, what we do, the practice seems to be anyway, is that we'll talk to younger people and we'll tell them, say, what do you want to do for a living? And then what we'll do is we'll say, okay, well, you've told me what you want to do. Well, let's look for a college program that is going to teach and train you up and all that nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's a really stupid process. And many of us older people don't even give it a second thought when we should be saying a whole lot more than that. But if you learn to recognize patterns, when someone asks you what you want to do for a living, you automatically in the back of your mind are going, well, it doesn't really matter what I want to do for a living. What matters is what I could potentially do for a living or what I could possibly do for a living. And you begin to see data in a new light. You begin to see research papers in a new light. You begin to see social media presence in a different light. You're seeing patterns. And this has I'm talking about it in a career perspective, but it has far broader connotations when it comes to, let's say, peer pressure, it has a lot of connotations when it comes to how you should handle money. You know, what's out there? What are the patterns? What do you see? What do you notice? It has a lot to do with, you know, how you should invest and what you should be looking for and what you should be doing, etc. Pattern recognition has a tremendous effect on your life. And it's one of the things that you should be doing and looking for, to be blunt. And so as somebody who's older, as a parent, or somebody who is at least open to sharing information to younger people, the idea that you should learn how to recognize patterns is immensely huge. Okay? So that's the first thing. And they kind of build off of one another, actually. So when you can recognize patterns, you don't talk to somebody at 5 and tell them the same thing that you told them at 16. The elevated maturity level, the elevated intelligence, the elevated intentionality on your part should tell you this, right? And so recognizing patterns at 5 looks different than recognizing patterns at 16. You're growing up, and then you get closer to adulthood. And the second thing, which I've already got a whole podcast episode and an article on the website about this, but the second thing that you can do for young people that are in your realm of influence, kids, etc., is to teach them to pursue opportunity. My God, I wish I had a megaphone and I was on the roof of the tallest building in the world and I had the ear of everybody when it comes to whatever it is you're going to do for a living, or even, you know, just pursue opportunity. Pursue opportunity. And this is why it's so ridiculous to ask somebody that's young who probably has no real work experience, what is it that you want to do? What kind of question is that? That's so surface level, it's ridiculous. All right. How about, have you looked at the data? You know, that's probably a way to say, you know, how is your pattern recognition? Have you looked at the data? What is out there? What kind of opportunities are out there? That has massive, massive implications. I think it was Mike Rowe who said something to the effect of most of the people he talked to on Dirty Jobs had basically seen where everybody else was going, and they went in the opposite direction. Well, if you're fleeing from this type of work, that's the kind of work that I want to go to, because when I go towards that work, it's a supply and demand. There's not that many people getting into that. So when I go into that, guess what's going to happen? I have got a greater opportunity for whatever it happens to be. It's also the reason why we here at the Wealthy Ironworker talk all the time about the opportunity in the trades. Depending on who you listen to, we are 500,000 to 600,000 short. When the latter half of the baby boomers retire in the next decade, we are going to be 2 to 3 million short. That is a massive opportunity. Massive. And if you're a young person within your realm of influence, or if you're a skilled tradesman or anybody else who wants the best for your kids, when you teach them to recognize patterns and then teach them to pursue opportunity for all it is worth, you are beginning them down the path to success. You could sit here and talk all day long about whatever it is that you're interested in and whatever else your hobbies are as a young person. And we want young people to be happy, but they also need to be able to provide for themselves. And in our current climate, there are a lot of things that people go off and do and pursue because older people told them they should go and do this nonsense. And then they're disenfranchised. And the reason why? Because it doesn't have an opportunity. They were not taught. You, older people, if you want to set someone up for success, I am telling you now, and I'm imploring you to talk about opportunity. You talk about opportunity when you rise. You talk about opportunity at lunch. You talk about it in the evening and as you go to bed. You consistently talk about opportunity. If you are a young person and if you always have your eye open for opportunity, okay? If you always have your eye open for opportunity, the level that you are likely to be successful has been elevated significantly because you are always looking for the opportunity. And one last thing about the pursuit of opportunity that probably really needs to be addressed. The vast majority of folks, as you age, we get into what I would say is a comfort level, and we don't want to make any, we're adverse to risk. And I'm talking to the choir here. But what happens then is, and when you get older and you know this, you can put it in the comments and you can reach out to me. I would love, love, love to hear your stories about this. But what happens when you get older is this. Intuitively, you look back and you live in the land of what if. You heard it right, the land of what if. You, in 20 years' time from now, if you're 40 or 50 or whatever, in 20 years' time from now, you know what you will do? You will regret the decisions and the risks that you did not take far more than the ones that you did. And the land of what if is where you dwell. You live in the land of what if, always thinking, what if I had made this choice? What if I had taken that job? What if I would have pursued this opportunity instead? And so we have a very difficult time in teaching younger people to pursue opportunity. And the reason why is because we ourselves didn't pursue opportunity. And we're adverse, to risk. And because we are risk adverse and we have made some choices to play it safe rather than make those choices, that's where we're at with this. And that's the reality. So I want to, the last thing, moving on from this point is think about that. Think about how you have been risk averse for probably a lot of your life and how you're going to have to step out of that when it comes and acknowledge that. Step out of it, acknowledge it to the young people in your life. And what it does is it builds a far more robust case to pursue opportunity. Don't be like me and play it safe and regret the choices that you did not make or the chances that you did not take. And you definitely do not want to live in the land of what if. And that's where a lot of people live. They live in the land of what if. So if you're tracking with me this far, if you want to help a younger person, first off, we're talking about recognizing patterns. Number 2, we're talking about pursuing opportunity. And number three, do not make the assumption that your kid is going to go to college or that they need it to go to get a good job. Instead, do this. Don't save money for college tuition. Save money for a house. That's right. Save money for a house. If you want to help a young person out, and I mean really help them out, what sounds better? To make the assumption that they need to go to college and get a good job and try to save some money for their tuition, and they're going to go off and they're going to pursue this and they're not doing everything. And then what happens is they go down this path and then they get out and now they have college tuition debt. More than likely, their educational experience and the quality of education has declined over the past 20 years. And now they're right back at square one. Far better for them if you save money for a down payment on a house for them. If you have the financial wherewithal to do so and you teach them these the pattern recognition, which is, of course, you can fit financial literacy in pattern recognition. But if you're teaching them all this and you save money for a house, imagine you go into work. And if, let's say, your kid is 16 years old, can you imagine their life if you have talked up pattern recognition? You go into the trades with the immense opportunity, and instead of paying $40,000 for college tuition, you actually put money on a house. Holy moly. They're going to get done with a 4-year apprenticeship that they didn't have to pay, but that they were paid, P-A-I-D, to go to. They're going to go out in the field on the job training, come back in the registered apprenticeship program. They're going to take theory in the class, and they're going to go to work. And then they have a sizable sum of money to put on a down payment on a home. Man, oh man. You want to talk about setting your kids up for success as a younger person? That is golden. and think about it like this. I get out and I'm going to make it up. Let's say you get out and you're making $50,000 a year. Just going to make this up. I'm making $50,000. Does my dollar go further if I have to pay tuition and and probably for a long time, by the way, if I don't have to pay tuition, but instead what I'm doing is taking that money and putting towards a mortgage, and then I don't have tuition, my mortgage, is reduced because my parents put money on a down payment on a house. It could mean the difference of having several $100s that are free to spend a month, literally. And let's do some numbers, and I'm going to pull them out off the top of my head. Let's say, for example, and I'm going to be very generous, but we're going to use easy numbers. Let's say that your mortgage is going to be $1,000. I know some of you are laughing at me right now, but let's just run with easy numbers. Let's say your mortgage is $1,000. Well, if you're paying tuition, I'm going to make it up. Let's also say that tuition payment is $300 a month. So now you're paying $1,300 a month for a home and everything else and all the food costs and inflationary stuff. But what if you don't go to college? And so now we take off that $300 payment that you are paying every month back on tuition debt that you cannot claim bankruptcy on. And then instead of that $1,000 a month towards your mortgage, you have an $800 mortgage. And the reason why is because a sizable down payment was put down on that home that you are in because your parents were financially prudent and did this third step for you. You want to talk about helping you set up for success. $1,300 includes a $1,000 mortgage and $300 tuition, or $800 a month, which is a reduced mortgage, as well as no tuition. That's $500 a month in our just makeshift example off the top of my head. That's $6,000 a year. What could you do with $6,000 extra dollars a year? You could pay it towards the principal and start to pay that house off faster. Maybe you need it for other things. But nonetheless, it's $500. And the reality is the real world examples are they have huge differences. Let's say, for example, you go from $1,300 a month, which is a $1,000 mortgage, and $300 in the tuition reimbursement or payback, for the loan. Let's say instead of $1,300, let's be a little bit more realistic, and let's say it's $2,000 between what you're having to pay and your tuition. But maybe instead of $2,000, you're only paying $1,300 a month. And that $1,300 is just on your mortgage and not any amount at all towards tuition. What does that look like? That's a $700 difference. What if teaching a young person this, your young person, somebody at work or within your own family, what if teaching that young person, what if the difference is you can seriously contemplate making it on one income as opposed to both parents, when you get married and have kids and all that jazz, instead of having both parents that absolutely have to work? Listen to somebody who is actively doing it. That's the route you want. You want to have the choice. You want to have the freedom of choice. So if you want to set a young person up for success, there are multiple things that you can do. But here are the three that we've talked about in this podcast, okay? Number one, helping them recognize patterns. Ideally, this is done from very early on, all throughout their life, but most assuredly throughout their adolescence. Recognizing patterns has huge benefits. Number two, building upon recognizing patterns, teaching them to pursue opportunity for all they are worth. Bar none. I don't care what it is. You might want to be a hairstylist, or let's bring it down. You might want to be a teacher. and I'm going to make the numbers up. Maybe being a teacher is $50,000 a year, but maybe there's an opportunity to do a career that no one seemingly wants to do, which pays you $100,000 a year. And I'm just recognize patterns, pursue opportunities, number 2, and number 3, don't save money for college tuition, and don't, make the mistake of thinking that it got to go. Instead, save money for a house. Save money for a house. Those 3 things right there. And and young people, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, chime in. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. What would your life be like if somebody would have taught you these 3 things and have done and helped you with these 3 things? What would your life be like going forward? An older person, did you do something similar to this? Did you do something different? I would like to know, because I'd like to talk to other people about this. But if you can help someone recognize patterns, if you can teach them to pursue opportunity, and if you can help save money for a home, and even themselves save money for a house, you will set them up for a far more measurable success, going forward. All right? Do those 3 things. And then let me know how it works. It's Wealthy Ironworker Podcast. Catch you on the next one.